A very good afternoon, everybody. Today is our third season starting today. In the morning, we had one slot of presentations. Now we have gathered for the afternoon slot of our presentations. Today, semester 3 students are making presentations on Indian English literature published in a pre-independent era. Let us have a look at the topics on which we will have a presentation in this slot. We'll start with Nikita's presentation. And she will be making it on Sita's voice in the Anglophone imagination, Toru Dutt's Lakshman. NIRALI's will be on Rabindranath Tagore, poet, composer, and visionary. SAGAR on Rabindranath Tagore as a philosopher. NISHTHA on from Vande Mataram to vocal for local. This vocal for local you can put in single inverted comma. Nationalism in Tagore's The Home and the World and Contemporary India. MANASI on Beyond Borders, Rabindranath Tagore's vision of nation and humanity. SMRUTI on The Impossible Women, Feminine Allegory and Female Agency in Indian nationalism. SRUSHTI on Home, World and the Women, Unraveling Tagore's Modern Dilemma. TANVI on Nationalism, Cosmopolitanism and Gender, a political reading of Tagore's The Home and the World. DEVANGINI on Nationalism, Gender and the Ethics of Choice in The Home and the World. Rajdeep on Myth, Memory and Nation. Tagore and Yeats on Nationalism and Identity. Krishna on Caste and Cosmic Injustice in The Curse or Karna, a socio-philosophical reading. Mita on the Indian epic on modern stage, T.P. Kailasam's experiment in drama. Satakshi on exploring crime, culture and karma, justice in Narayan's short stories. I think you have to put a colon, exploring crime, culture and karma, colon, justice in Narayan's short stories. Shruti on crime and punishment in educational context, power, complicity, and the failure of parental involvement. And the last one will be by Rosmin on subaltern voices on screen, representation and resistance in cinema. Okay, so let us start with the first one. Nikita, you can start the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is our first presentation on paper 201 Indian English Literature Pre-Independence, and today is my presentation topic about the Sita's voice in the Anglophone imagination Toru Dutt's Lakshman. Lights. Okay. This is my personal information, table of contents. These are research questions and hypothesis. First, we see introduction. Toru Dutt lived in a very short life, but she made a deep mark on Indian English literature. I think she lived 21 years. In her collection, Asian Ballads and Legend of Hindustan, she retells Indian epic in English poetry, like Sita, Savitri, and Lakshman. And in the poem, Lakshman focuses on the moment when Sita insists that Lakshman should leave her and search for Ram. This episode is significant because it allows Sita's voice to emerge more strongly than in the Sanskrit epic. So, first we see meaning of Anglophone. What is the definition of Anglophone? Having Anglophone having English as the main language. We all know Toru Dutt know is more language, but she has written in English. For example, the city's Anglophone population and can also mean a person. Anglophones are people who speak English as their main language. In this topic, we see Lakshman, Anglophone imagination, how English speaking writers and readers imagine Indian stories. Another thing is Sita in Lakshman. So when we learned about the Lakshman poetry, in that time we talk about the main thing is Lakshman. Focus is only Lakshman character. But here I have taken this Sita's character. How her voice taken by Toru Dutt. Sita is not silent or passive. Speaks with authority and emotion. Express love for Ram and fear for his safety. Shows suspicious when Lakshman hesitates. Humanized here, Toru Dutt also Sita's character is a humanized, not only an ideal wife but a woman with a vulnerability. Toru Dutt given Sita's a powerful human voice in English poetry. So we see here thematic overview. First we see Sita's voice. That gives Sita's voice, allowing her to express emotions, fear, and inner thoughts. Feminine agency. The poem portrays Sita as autonomous, resilient, and emotionally strong, challenging the struggle's passive depictions. Another thing is a colonial perspective. How we see the Anglophone medium blend Indian myth with a Victorian literary style, situating Sita's perspective in a cross-culture context. Another thing is colonial context and Anglophone literature. In English become a medium for Indian poets during colonial Indian. At that time, Indian poets had written in English. Writing in English allowed Indian culture and literature to reach global readers. The period shaped literary convention, Victorian poetic forms, and influenced Indian English poetry. Toru Dutt's work reflect this historical and literary backdrop, situating Lakshman within a colonial literary framework. So first we see in literary critical perspective how we see Lakshman, Toru Dutt's Lakshman. Toru Dutt enigmatic figure. First we see enigmatic figure means blending personal insight with literary creativity. Negotiate between Indian narrative tradition and European poetic form. Lakshman fusion of Indian epic story plus Victorian English style highlights a female perspective within classical Indian epics. Balances emotional depth with formal poetic structure. So Indian sensibility defines authenticity of Indian English poetry. Indian poets can express cultural identity and real experience in English. How Toru Dutt add her expression in Sita's character, showing cultural identity. And Lakshman, Sita's portrayal reflect Indian sensibility and value. Demonstrates how traditional Indian themes are communicated to global audience. In this, we see Sita's character in Ramayana. So, how Toru Dutt tries to reach global audience reinforces a woman's voice and emotional agency in poetry. So, in conclusion, overall, the poem highlights woman's voice, cultural translations, and colonial era creativity, securing Toru Dutt's place as a key figure in Indian English poetry. So, these are references, and thank you. If anyone have a question, please ask me.
So, Nikita, my question is for you that how does Toru Dutt's Lakshman negotiate the tension between tradition and modernity?
So it fuses Indian epic value with English poetic form, uh, balancing cultural authenticity and global literary style.
Nikita, my question that why is Toru Dutt called a pioneer of the Indian English literature?
Because she was among the first used English to retelling Indian epic, blending Indian sensibility with global literary form. So thank you. This is from my side. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am NIRALI VAGHELA. Today, I am going to deal with Rabindranath Tagore as poet, composer, and a visionary. This is my academic information. This is a table of contents. Introduction. So, Rabindranath Tagore was born in Calcutta in 1861. He was poet, poet, writer, and a painter, and he was the first non-European to win Nobel Prize in Literature for his collection of poetry called Gitanjali. Rabindranath Tagore, childhood and creativity. So Rabindranath Tagore disliked rigid schooling. He preferred learning from nature, observation and books. And his father's role in of Rabindranath Tagore's life is encouraged him to self-learning and spiritual growth. Psychological view of Erickson's theory applied in this. Erickson's theory is that every child need the freedom and support to to become confident. So in Tagore's life, his family already support him in his life, and his family gave him freedom. So that apply in here the significance of the Tagore. So, yeah, people of Bengal consider the era of the Rabindranath Tagore when he was alive as the age of the Rabindranath Tagore. Over 15 million people consider this as this. And Rabindranath Tagore was also a translator of his own work. He translated his own work from Bengali to English.
So new Renaissance. Uh, uh, in Greek, that time the lamp of the new era, just as Greek was the lamp of our Renaissance, this new intercourse with Bengal marks the opening of another period. Tagore's musical contribution. Tagore wrote more than 2,000 songs and he was a lyric poet. In Gitanjali, he also wrote a prose poem. That's why he got a Nobel Prize. And Tagore's philosophical inheritance. Tagore traveled more than 34 countries, so he was more rational about the philosophical view of him. He believed that people need to be humanist rather than orthodox or traditional. In this, the influence of Western thought. Tagore combined Western philosophy with Eastern expression. He opened his soul to the idea of the West. Tagore's vision of a social responsibility. Tagore thought that if all people support agriculture, art, women empowerment, local community, then the country can be developed more, and all people's help will help to develop the country. So all people have this social responsibility to follow. Controversies around Tagore. He faced criticism from political, literary, and religious group. He posthumously accused of Hindu chauvinism and anti-Muslim bias. Anti-Tagore sentiment is especially strong around partition and in the East Pakistan. The charges of sectarianism. Critics like Abul Mansur Ahmad and Syed Ali Ahsan rejected Tagore as a Hindu poet. Conservative critics claim his works neglected Muslim and promoted Hindu nationalism. Pakistanism banned Tagore's work, viewing him as an anti-Pakistani. Here is the quote given by Tagore. Move out of yourself, stand out in the open. You will hear the music of the universe in your heart. These are the novels. So Mashi and Hungry Stone are two short story by Tagore, and The Home and the World, Gora and the Wreck are the novel by him. So he is the only person to have composed the national anthem for two countries. For India, Jana Gana Mana, and for Bangladesh, Amar Shonar Bangla. In education, he was the founder of Vishwa Bharati University, pioneering a alternative holistic model of education. So conclusion, Tagore's legacy is one of the universal vision, blending Eastern tradition like the Brahmo and Orthodox tradition of India with the Western ideas, particularly from Christianity. He strongly advocated for social responsibility, promoting self-reliant village and founding the institution of rural reconstruction. Despite his worldwide acclaim, include composing national anthem for India and Bangladesh, he faced criticism and change of sectarianism after the partition. These are the references. So thank you. Do you have any question?
So, Nirali, my question for you: how does Tagore's idea of world citizenship compare to today's debates on globalizations and cosmopolitanism?
So his perspective of globalization and cosmopolitanism. So Tagore believed that all the people need to be globalized, and he said that people don't need to be binded by religion, politics, or nation. All have to be globalized. That's his view about the world citizenship. Any other question?
इसके ऊपर Good afternoon, everyone. Today, my presentation topic is Rabindranath Tagore as a philosopher. This is my personal information. And my research question is, how did Rabindranath Tagore use poetry, music, and education to express his philosophical ideas and promote a universal vision of humanism? And my hypothesis is Tagore integration of art, spirituality, and education created a practical philosophy that not only reflect the Indian spiritual tradition but also engage with global ideas, fostering moral development, cultural harmony, and universal humanism. Introduction. Rabindranath Tagore won two major awards. One is Nobel Prize for Literature, and second is the Knighthood in 1915. But he renounced the knighthood in 1909 because of Jallianwala Bagh blood booth. Rabindranath Tagore was not only a poet and artist, but also profound philosopher. His idea was bridge Indian spiritual tradition and global modernity. Unlike abstract theoristic, Tagore expressed his philosophy throughout poetry, music, and education, presenting spiritual as a lived human experience. Shantiniketan and education philosophy. Tagore vision for education at Shantiniketan blend learning with art, music, and nature. He believed that students should experience a creativity and spirituality together. Festivals such as the Rain Festival were designed not just for celebration but as a immersive experience that combined culture, spiritual, and intellectual growth. Philosophical inherent. Tagore philosophical foundation was deeply influenced by the Upanishad, which emphasized the unity of the individual soul and with the ultimate reality. He also drew the inspiration from the Brahmo Samaj. He rejects the nation of Maya as a mere negation. Instead, emphasize affirmation and creative engagement with the world, freedom and morality. Tagore religion was a primarily ethical action, not mere ritual. He emphasized that true morality arises from inner freedom, where individuals are act from conscious and understanding rather than completion. This approach reflect his belief that ethical living is a natural extension of spiritual awareness. Optimize was central to Tagore ethical philosophy. He believed that human, throughout their action and creativity, engage with the world, can cultivate goodness and harmony. East-West dialogue in philosophy. Tagore actively engaged with Western ideas, including Christian ethic and rationalist thought, while remaining rooted in Indian spiritual tradition. He sought a dialogue between culture, believing that a universal truth could emerge from the synthesis of Eastern and Western philosophy perspective by integrative insight from the both worlds. Tagore positioned himself as a universal philosopher, adopting for humanism, moral responsibility, and spiritual unity. His work demonstrates the engagement with a global idea, need to not compromise one's culture and spiritual foundation. Tagore and Sufi influence. Tagore's spiritual philosophy was profound shaped by Sufi mysticism, drawing inspired from poets like Hafiz and Rumi. He also influenced by the whole mystics of Bengal. His 1932 visit of Iran depends his appreciation for intellectual spiritual excellence, reinforcing his belief in the universal of human experience. Religion's secretism. Tagore tried to bring together Hindu and Muslim spiritual tradition, showing that at the heart of all religions, people are connected by the same human and spiritual value. He believed that true spirituality goes beyond a religion level and aim to highlight the unity of all people throughout his poems, songs, and teaching. His idea of religion secretism meant accepting a different religion while focusing on a shared value like life, love, composition, and harmony. Tagore wanted everyone to respect diversity and live together peacefully, showing that difference in culture, or religion don't have to divide humanity. Conclusion. Rabindranath Tagore was more than a poet or architect. He was a universal philosopher who blended Indian spirituality tradition with a global idea. Throughout his poetry, music, education, and engagement with a diverse culture, he showed how ethics, creativity, and spirituality can come together to guide human life. His philosophy encouraged inner freedom, moral responsibility, and respect for culture and religion diversity, making him a timeless thinker whose ideas remain relevant today. This is my work cited. Thank you, everyone. If you have any question, feel free to ask.
So my question is, did Tagore agree with all Indian traditions?
Tagore doesn't agree with all Indian tradition. He criticized the caste and empty ridiculous.
So my question is, what was unique about his education system?
Tagore linked learning with nature, art, and joy instead of rote study. Like our department in yeah, reminding us that knowledge is not only for exam. It also to shape the free, creative, and critical thinking. Last few days we see DH work in activity how help in our regular life also. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Myself NISHTHA DESAI, and my today's presentation topic is From Vande Mataram to Vocal for Local, Nationalism in Tagore's The Home and the World and Contemporary India. These are my academic information. My research question is, how does Tagore's critique of nationalism in the home and the world resonate with the challenge and contemporary nationalist campaigns like Vocal for Local in India? And my hypothesis is, while both Swadeshi in Tagore's time and vocal for local in contemporary India emphasize economic self-reliance as a form of nationalism, Tagore's critics suggest that without ethical responsibility and inclusivity, such movements risk slipping into exclusionary or exploitative nationalism. So, introduction. So, we know that in the Home and the World novel by Rabindranath Tagore, Tagore want to criticize the concept of true nationalism in the both way, like in the voice of Sandeep and in the voice of Nikhil. So, in the voice of Sandeep, we can say that the concept of nationalism is not proper, but in the Nikhil's perspective we can find the true way of nationalism. And he wrote this novel in the context of partition of Bengal during 1905, and at that time the Swadeshi movement. So this novel is part of that, and here I want to connect it with the recent concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat in our India. So, first, Tagore's critique of nationalism. So, in the novel, we can find that Nikhil's voices represent the ethical universalism, reason, and moral responsibility. Sandeep's voice, Sandeep is a leader of Swadeshi movement. So, his voice represents the aggressiveness, passionate, and manipulation through the nationalism. Nikhil's voice is truth, and Sandeep voice is Vande Mataram at every time. So how we can identify from both characters the different concept of nationalism. And Bimla is the mouth of Sandeep. So we can find that her inner conflict mirror India's awakening, confusion, and eventual disillusionment. So here Tagore wants to suggest that in the novel, nationalism without ethics is dangerous. True service must be guided by universal value of humans. So in our contemporary India, current we can find that vocal for local. So in the vocal for local promotes India made goods under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and nationalism now become that type of logo, like a slogan of that type in the novel, like Vande Mataram. So in the nowadays we also notice that, observe that logo also we can find in contemporary time. And digital campaigns and slogans mobilize public sentiment. Identity is shaped through economic participation, not just emotional elegance. So here I put one news. Swadeshi, the news from the Economic Times news, and here in that news published on beginning of August month, and in that we can find that nowadays we have to become a market to maker. Now we have to not a job receiver, but we have to become a job giver. So that concept in that, and focus on skill and self-sufficiency. Global firms like Apple, Tesla, VinFast produce in India, local control stay strong. So connect it with Tagore's novel. Sandeep used the propaganda of Swadeshi for that Vande Mataram slogan. And in the today's in that news, we also that false pride and slogan of India we can find from that. Sorry. And here in the news of Drashti IAS, it was also news was in August news, and it seems like PM Gati Shakti and Make India as are presented at Act of National Duty. Youth and civil service aspirants are urged to view economic participation as patriotism. So how it connects with the novel? In the Home and the World, Sandeep also compares Bimla. So in today's time also we can find that many people are like Bimla, they are manipulated and forget their role of true nationalism. Their concept is true, but their way is not true. And here the comparison of Tagore versus recent vocal for local. In the Tagore's vision, he want that nationalism without ethics, it exploitive and manipulative. And in the Sandeep voice, in the novel, we can find Sandeep is driven by passion and rhetoric and pressure rather than genuine service. We also know that the difference between Sandeep and Nikhil. And in the contemporary vocal for local promotes economic self-reliance through the consumer choices. So key difference between them is Tagore stressed moral responsibility and universal humanism, while today's campaign is focused on economic partition as patriotism. So, to conclude, I want to say that nationalism in India has shifted from emotional fervor to strategic action. Yet, Tagore's warning remains timeless. Without ethics and even patriotic duty can become dangerous. So, as in contemporary India, vocal for local redefine the identity through economic choice, we must ensure the nationalist empowerment with concise and not the conformity. These are my references. And thank you. If anyone have question, please ask.
So, Nishtha, my question is, if nationalism today is framed through economic participation, how do we balance patriotic duty with Tagore's call for universal ethics and moral responsibility?
Yes, Nirali. For that, I want to share my recent example. In few days ago, we donate our money to that website, Wikipedia. So I shared with my neighbor. So she said me, why you donate in Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia is not Indian. So at that time, I also thought that if we search it upon that and get knowledge. So at that time, why we can't stop? No, we can't search because it's not Indian website and all those things. So from Nikhil's perspective, first of all, we have to grow our mindset. That's all.
My question for you. I have observed recently that many people promote buying local products as a way to show patriotism. Have you seen this too? And does it recall a similar struggle of emotion versus ethics in a novel?
Yes. In the recent, we can say that we few days ago we wrote that postcard. So we know that in many banks also they gave target to write that postcard and send it. And we know that where the postcard sent, they can't read that postcard thoroughly. So if I speak here something about to follow Swadeshi, but in my pocket the my phone is another country's brand, so I have no right to say you should be Swadeshi. That's from my side. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mansi Joshi. So, my today's topic is Beyond Borders, Rabindranath Tagore's vision of nation and humanities. Here is my academic details, table of contents, introduction. So, in this introduction, present that Tagore is not only a poet, but he is also a thinker whose works shaped debates on nationalhood, culture, and humanism. So his writing moved beyond rigid national boundaries, stressing the interconnectedness of humanity, while skeptical of aggression nationalism. So he believed in a higher moral and cultural order, and that embraced diversity in dialogue. Here is my research question. How does Rabindranath Tagore's conception of nation and nationalism, as reflected in his literary and critical works, reconcile or conflict with his universalist worldwide view, and what implication does this have for modern interpretation of cultural identity? Hypothesis. So Rabindranath Tagore constructs a vision of nationalism that is tempered by cosmopolitan ideals. Thus, his literary and critical corpus reveals not a parochial nationalism but humanistic nationalism, in which allegiance to one's culture coexists with a broader commitment to universal human values. So, Tagore's idea of nation. So, Rabindranath Tagore redefined the idea of nation beyond his Western conception. For him, the nation was not merely about territorial borders, as well ethnic unity or linguistic identity. So rather, it was about a collective moral and cultural purpose. So Tagore's vision is central on the individual spiritual growth, which would radiate into the community and ultimately humanity at large. So his famous declaration, patriotism cannot be our final spiritual and our shelter, so underlines his rejection of blind nationalism, that you have to not blindly follow someone's idea or any politician's idea. You should think by your own, and then you have to follow that rule and regulations. So Tagore versus Gandhi on nationalism. So the intellectual debate between Tagore and Gandhi represent two contrasting philosophers of Indian nationalism. So Gandhi approach was rooted in practical resistance, economy, boycotts, non-corruption, non-cooperation, and reliance on indigenous practice such as the spinning khadi. So, in the contrast, the Tagore, however, believes such measure risked closing Indian off from the global exchanges. As well, his establishment of Vishwa Bharati University reflects his faith in education, dialogue, and international cooperation. Yet, despite this difference, both leaders shared concern for humanity, dignity, freedom, and moral progress. About the book The Poet and His World, critical essays on Rabindranath Tagore. So this book tries to connect the limited ways Tagore has been seen. So instead of viewing him only as a Bengali cultural poet and dismissing him about aloof from the politics, so the essay presents him as a universal thinker. For example, so Khayyam shows how in Kabuliwala story of Afghan fruit seller and a Bengali child. So this also connected us with Tagore expressed human connection across cultural and religious. So critical perspectives. So the essay shows many faces of Tagore's. Khayyam uses Kabuliwala to stress interreligious bond link with Tagore's political writing to modern thinkers like Edward Said and Benedict androgen. So here we can see how Tagore is also connected with the human emotions. Next is that Tagore's composition world vision. So how through his eyes we can see this universal world. So in this Tagore studied Western literature and education, absorbed its philosophies, and then merged them with his own idea, culture, spirituality, and traditional roots. Then manifestation of Tagore's worldview in his poems and short stories. So in his poem, Tagore often dwelled on childhood innocence and his purity. For example, from the crescent moon, he writes about a child's unspoiled perspective, their natural joy, unaffected by adult concerns. So he also explores love, separation, grief, such as the poem "Do Not Go, My Love." So this poem he written when his wife was about to die. So expressing longing and sorrow. Then critique of nationalism and ideology. So in this, Tagore does not reject all form of community or cultural identity. Rather, he objects when those identities are rigid, exclusionary, or violent. So, for example, we can say the major aim of this article by Dalej. So he emphasized that showed that Tagore does not only critique nationalism, but he also offers a positive alternative grounded in universal values. And as Tagore's idea is that humanity is one, and that moral spiritual bond transcends the artificial political boundaries. So the article emphasized how Tagore refuses to reduce identity to the national state, instead urging inward freedom, education, and the cultivation of conciseness. Then Tagore founded Shantiniketan, an educational institute meant to bridge East and West to foster openness, cross culture understanding, and vision of learning beyond colonial models. So Tagore was also emphasized on education. So he believed in education system, so people can think what they are doing. And in conclusion, his critique of nationalism and his emphasis on culture connectedness of offer insight for our presented world, where debates on identity and global harmony are still pressing. Tagore's literary and philosophical contribution remind us to balance cultural pride with openness to humanity at large. Here is my references, and thank you. Any question, please?
Hansi, my question for you: how does Rabindranath Tagore conception of the nation differ from the European model of nationalism, and how does it reshape Indian struggle against colonial rule?
So, Rabindranath Tagore believes in India, struggle was not only for political and we can say only for nationalism and independent political idea, but for spirituality, liberation, where patriotism must serve humanity rather than the dominant it. So in this, we cannot rely on only with bloodshed or moral fights, but we have to connect with philosophical ideas, spirituality, and that dominant idea.
Nancy. My question is, how does Tagore's universal humanism underpin his rejection of nationalism as ideology?
So, human life is mostly believed, mostly based on our kindness, morality, and a feeling of oneness with all the people. So, nationalism, in his view, is forget these values and instead creates the division and the violence. So, only idea of the nation is temporary, but if we think with the heart that bigger idea of humanity, which is last and forever, so we have to connect with that. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. Uh, Today's topic of my presentation is the impossible woman, a feminine allegory and female in Indian nationalism. So these are my academic information. So the basic research question for my presentation is, how does connecting nation and woman through Mother India symbolism create double marginalization simultaneously, denying a woman political agency and denying the nation's sovereign autonomy? And what does this reveal about the relationship between feminine allegory and patriarchal nationalism and the possibilities for liberation? So the hypothesis becomes asserts that when nations are figured as mothers, two connected marginalizations occur. First is women are reduced from political agents to passive symbols, losing voice and autonomy. And the second is the nation is feminized as vulnerable and dependent, losing the capacity for sovereign self-determination. These marginalizations are structurally women, and you cannot symbolize women without feminizing what they represent. This double marginalization mobilizes nationalism effectively in the short term by exploiting emotional connections to maternal sacrifice, but generates long term resistance from both feminists demanding women's agency and nationalists demanding genuine sovereignty, creating internal contradictions that undermines liberation movements. So, introduction. Rabindranath Tagore's Bharat Mata iconology, he has painted in 1905, created a powerful nationalist symbol, but Rabindranath Tagore's The Home and the World, written in translated in 1916 by Surendranath Tagore, reveals its cost. Maternal symbolism trapped both women and the nation in dependency, calling the homeland mother, feminizes the nation as vulnerable and makes women passive symbols, creating double marginalization. While this imagery effectively mobilized anti-colonial sentimental culturally, it failed politically, as movements denying agency to both women and nation cannot achieve true liberation. Tagore and Sumati Ramaswamy in her The Goddess and the Nation show that this pattern persists in modern nationalist movements worldwide. So, how we can connect nation and woman? So, maternal body is equal to national territory. Suffering of women as a suffering of nation, and woman embodies national identity. So, these three mechanisms link nations and women. The land is mapped as a maternal body. Women's suffering becomes a national suffering, as Patnaik shows in her article, and Tagore's novel and women like Bimla in Tagore's novel are made to stand for the entire nation. Like we see that in political interpretation of Tagore's novel, Bimla is said as the nation, and that Bimla represents the nation, or we can say Bengal in its context. So this connection feels natural, but it is created through allegory, as we know. Now, understanding double marginalization. So, women as symbols, nation feminized, men is protected through this uh, allegory type of marginalization, and this double marginalization creates a marginalization loop, like where female is present representing nation, then nation women is made as a symbol for nation, which makes a nation appear vulnerable. It denies nation and requires masculine rescue. So this type of loop we can see in this double marginalization of context. Then how Mother India marginalizes the nation. So from a sovereign actor to vulnerable victim, feminization of nation denies sovereignty of nation. We can see when the nation is depicted as mother, it becomes feminized, and it in patriarchal logic, feminine means weak, passive, requiring protection, and the nation shifts from being a powerful entity exercising determination to being a vulnerable body needing masculine rescue. So, Sumati Ramaswamy in her book shows Bharat Mata as compassionate mother demanding filial devotion and loyalty. But examine what this representation does. The nation is positioned as demanding, as compassionate, as requiring loyalty. Every descriptor feminizes and thus marginalizes sovereignty. So now we can see, we will see how the portrayal of Bharat Mata marginalizes women. So from a citizen to symbol, a character, a female character or a woman is portrayed as just a symbol of nation, and symbolic centrality without real agency it becomes. So women appear central through images of Mother India, but this is symbolic rather than real power. The inspire men's action while their own agency is erased. So we can say that we can see this chart of how women's condition before allegory and after becoming allegory of Mother India. And we can see evidence from history, as Charugupta notes that maternal icons like Bharat Mata, Matrubhasha, Gau Mata, or we can say we call Mother Nature, demanded sacrifice, devotion, and protection from sons, while positioning women themselves as symbolic rather than agential. So then Bimla as nation, the double marginalization, example of double marginalization. So Bimla is in Tagore's novel is shown as a woman plus a nation, a patriotic symbol for we can see through, if we see through the lens of Sandeep's patriotism. So, Ray and Ranawat establish Bimla's journey represents Bengal's own struggle between tradition and modernity, between the home and the world. As we can see, Bimla struggling between her home and her new modernization as she grows the idea of patriotism through the speech of Sandeep. So she is the nation in allegorical form, we can say. The novel as political intervention against both marginalizations. So here Sardar's reading, Sardar has done the political interpretation of this novel. So Tagore critiques the excesses of nationalist fervor through the domestic sphere, showing how political ideologies invade and disrupt personal relationships. But it's more than domestic disruption, it's exposing how nationalism marginalizes its own subjects. Here we can, in the novel by Tagore, we can see the three stages of patriotism, that is extremist nationalism by Sandeep, moderate nationalism by Nikhil, and the female allegory of nation, Bimla, and how she is used by Sandeep to in name of patriotism and other things. So Bimla's trajectory demonstrates Tagore's argument that authentic selfhood cannot be achieved through nationalist symbolism, cultural success, and political failure. We can see that Mother India imagery was culturally effective as it provokes the citizens to more to get more enrolled in the activities, but it creates an political failure as it fails to help in political agencies. So Ramaswamy shows that Mother India imagery was culturally powerful. It turned abstract nationalism into intimate emotional devotion. However, as Charu Gupta explains, this success depended on reducing women to symbols rather than agents, demanding sacrifice and protection from men. Sanika Patnaik further in her article, she further notes that portraying the nation as a vulnerable mother requiring protection mobilized nationalist sentiment, but also positioned the nation as dependent rather than sovereign. Thus, the paradox is that while the imagery was effective in mobilization, it relied on double marginalization, denying both women's agency and the nation's sovereignty. In this way, the very strategy of success carried within it the seeds of political failure. So this table shows us the comparative insight of Ramaswamy's book and the Tagore's interpretation, the interpretation of Tagore's novel. And we can see in women's position, together these both texts give us that symbolic centrality is marginalization, emotional power is also marginalization, and effectiveness and destruction are same process. What works short term fails, what works for short term fails for long term, and need both to understand full contradiction as we have to connect these two objects. So the synthesis: Ramaswamy documents double marginalization as culturally successful, and Tagore critiques double marginalization as structurally unsustainable. So we can say that Tagore and Ramaswamy together reveal the paradox: the same imagery that united people also weakened the very goals of women's emancipation and national sovereignty. Cultural effectiveness and political impossibility were two sides of the same process. So the resistance pattern, double critique emerges. Double marginalization sparks two resistance. The first is feminist resistance, where women reject being symbols without agency. like Bimla rejects Sandeep's use of her. And the second is nationalist resistance. Nation rejects victimhood identity, push for sovereignty beyond suffering mother, and both must happen together. Women's liberation and national sovereignty are interconnected. So, Enlo, in her article, in her book, gives the idea that nationalism worldwide still centers women symbolically, but sidelines them politically. Contemporary resistance, or we can say contemporary relevance of this. So this pattern we seen that continues even today in the form that nationalist movements still use mother nation imagery. Women remain symbolic, not political, in some cases. Then global politics, we can see that developing nations feminized as weak, needing Western protection, and India today, we can see in India, Mother India rhetoric persists even today, and women's political role lags behind symbolic presence. So Gupta on this makes the note that maternal icons demand sacrifice but deny agency. And Enlow notes that double marginalization remains modernized and not solved. The cost, what this cost to us. So women's agencies are lost. We can see nation sovereignty loss and liberation is undermined through this kind of paradox, or this kind of allegory of women as a nation. So the cost is, we can say, threefold. Women remain symbols without power. The nation is depicted as a victim rather than sovereign. And liberation movements fail to deliver true freedom because their very framework denies agency to those it claims to be free. So, what are the solution to escape this kind of double marginalization? We can say that to have the solution, we can de-link women and nation from victimhood to we can go from victimhood to sovereignty, and we can reject masculine rescue of narratives and participation over symbolization of women's. So to move forward, we must separate women from nation as symbols, emphasizing on sovereignty, and reject the idea of men as rescuers, and ensure the participation of women instead of just symbolic representation. So this slide is about what this study contributes to this is. So I can say that a double marginalization framework shows women and nation are marginalized together, not separately. The method of combining novels and cultural histories reveal a system that no signal text shows. The historical insight explains why anti-colonial nationalism mobilized devotion but denied agency, and contemporary tool we can see that helps analyze modern identity politics and check if symbolic roles limit agency or sovereignty. So the conclusion: the story of Mother India is ultimately a story about the cost of using people as symbols. When Tagore wrote his novel in 1916, he saw he has not written in 1916, but in the translation in 1916, he saw what would take historians another century to fully document, that the most emotionally powerful political symbols often carry the highest human cost by making the nation into a mother and mothers into national symbols. Indian nationalism created a structure where neither woman nor the nation itself could exercise genuine freedom both remain trapped in positions of vulnerability and dependence, forever waiting for masculine heroes to rescue them. This wasn't an accidental flow, but a structural necessity of how the symbolism worked. Today, as nationalist movements worldwide continue reaching for maternal imagery to mobilize political emotion, they reproduce this same pattern of double marginalization. And we can see this double marginalization of concept and this feminist lens in so many things that we call mother nation, mother language, and other things. So learning outcome. So I learned that feminine allegories in nationalist discourse marginalizes both women and the nation simultaneously, and that symbolic visibility doesn't guarantee real power. Using multiple methods like novels and cultural history helps reveal these structural effects, showing how symbols can unintentionally undermine what they honor. And I also have seen that these patterns persist in modern nationalism, creating a paradox where movements can mobilize effectively yet fail to achieve true liberation. Real solutions require participatory democracy and genuine agency, not just symbolic representation of nation. And so these are my references, and this was from my side. Thank you. If you have any question, you are feel to ask.
So, Smruti, my question is: isn't the nation always gendered in some way? Uh, an example: Marian in France, Britannia in Britain. Why single out India?
Yes, many nations use allegory of female allegories, but in India, the maternal imagery was central to nationalism, and it creates a deeper contradictions between, we can say, the devotion to Mother India context and denial of women's agency.
Smruti, my question is: isn't the Mother India symbol empowering rather than marginalizing?
So, Mother India symbol empowering rather than marginalizing. In As per my view, it looks empowering on the surface, but it traps women in passive symbolic roles, and the nation gains emotional power but loses its political agency in one or the other way. So this was from my side. Thank you.
You have to maximum take 8 minutes. You have taken 3 times the time that is given. So others also, tomorrow also when you plan, you keep this in mind, that within 8 minutes you have to complete your presentation.
So, hello everyone. So, today I am dealing with home, world, and woman, unraveling Tagore's modern dilemma, academic information, table of contents. So, my research question is: how does Tagore articulate the modern dilemma facing the woman in early 20th century Bengal, specifically Is the heroine Bimla quest for individual freedom compatible with the demands of the emerging nationalist movement, or does the novel structurally reinforce the subservience of the woman question to the national question? In hypothesis, the structural division of the private, like a ghare means home, Bimla, tradition, values, domestic economics, and public means bahire or outside or the world. Sandeep, nationalism, foreign economy. Spheres in Ghare Bahire means the home and the world by Rabindranath Tagore creates a dilemma where Bimla's emergent feminist identity is structurally co-opted or sacrificed to serve the competing allegories of either political nationalism or traditional patriarchal orders. This structural reinforcement is the core of Tagore's modern dilemma, demonstrating that the nation's political emancipation is prioritized over the woman's social and personal emancipation. So, in introduction, this novel first published in 1916, and when it was published, that time it was controversial and stirring up fierce debates about politics and women's role. And while other Tagore's work like Gora, Choker, Bali are admired more at that time, this is one unique today. It is the only one of his novel that modern or contemporary scholars continue to dedicate multiple entire volumes of criticism, and this shows us that the novel's core problem, the split between home and world, is still hugely relevant for understanding the post-colonial condition today. And the political context, the Swadeshi movement. So, to understand novel that so we must know the historical background. So, Bengal around 1905 to 1907, during that Swadeshi movement was occurred, and this movement was fundamentally an economic fight which oppressed economic fight in the between oppressed Indian people and economic policy of British colonizers. And the core idea was to promote Swadeshi, which is Indian-made goods, and completely boycott British means outside or foreign or Videshi goods. And these intense political and economic struggle serves as the constant backdrop for the personal choice the characters make. Then the central dichotomy, home and the world. So, novel's title, Home and the World, means home means ghare, and world means baire or outside. This creates a fundamental split. So the key concept here is dichotomy, means just sharp or contrasting division between two things. The home and world split is the structure blueprint for the entire book. It represents many opposed pairs at once, like India versus England, the native versus the colonizers, and most importantly, the woman versus the men. So, historical economies of race and gender. So, we already seen the split of home and world is deeply connected to sexual and political, religious, and economic history. So, the home was private space or antapur, where women were secluded, and the world was the public space from which they were excluded. So historically, the British suppressed Indian industries, especially those producing clothes and textiles, because clothes was the central to the Swadeshi fight, and Even a woman's domestic choice of what to wear in the home become major political and economic symbol. We have already seen in Home and the World novel that people tries to burn their own foreign clothes to support Swadeshi movement. Then Bimla is a nationalist allegory. So here we can see that Bimla is one of the main character. So she becomes the entire nation's story and an example of nationalist allegory. She is pulled in opposite directions. Her personal desire for individual freedom versus the overwhelming moral demands of Indian nationalism. Her struggle to step out of her traditional roles is seen as a representative of an entire nation trying to navigate the shift from tradition to political modernity. So the main characters under scrutiny. So the here we can see three main characters: Bimla, Sandeep, and Nikhilesh. So critics continue to closely study the intense relationship between triangle between Bimla, Nikhil, and Sandeep. So Sandeep here described as a extreme nationalist, and Bimla as a voice of women who are trying to get freedom, and Nikhil represent as Bimla's gentle husband. So the fact that scholars still dissect these dynamic shows the novel's lasting impact of feminist and post-colonial studies. Comparative literature framework, Vishwa Sahitya. So one key way to read this novel is through a comparative literature framework, a concept of this Tagore himself promoted as Vishwa Sahitya or universal literature. Goal is here to look beyond differences in culture or politics to find the core human experience that is the same for all people. Comparing Bimla's dilemma to that of other women in world, literature help us to see that universal truth more clearly than Bimla compared to Western heroines. So here Bimla is compared with two different characters. First is Isabel Archer in Henry James's A Portrait of a Lady, and Lilia Harrington in E.M. Foster's Where Angels Fear to Tread. So here we can see that Bimla is also used by Sandeep for her husband's wealth, and as well as we can see that character Isabel also, Isabel's husband, Osmond, also used her for her property and her inheritance and her money because she belongs to a wealthy family. Then enduring a feminist plot. So the novel's feminist plot is a lasting study of women's fighting for their freedom against the combined pressure of tradition and national politics. The structural separation of private and public space is not unique to India. It is a universal feature in how gender is constructed, appearing in everything from ancient Tamil poetry to the modern economics, split between domestic unpaid labor and wage labor. So modern relevance and post-colonial condition. So the themes of this novel are not stuck in the past, but they are intensely relevant to the post-colonial world today. And the exact conflict Bimla faced in the Home and the World as a divided gendered space are still being explored in a contemporary Indian woman's novel written in English. This shows that Tagore's original problem is far from solved and continues to shape modern identities. So, in conclusion, Ghare Baire means the home and the world structurally presents a modern dilemma where the heroine Bimla's pursuit of individual freedom is perpetually co-opted by the competing demands of the patriarchal home and political world. The novel highlights an academic aporia, a critical impasse where the desire for national liberation risks overshadowing and sacrificing the woman's social and personal emancipation. Tagore's novel remains a pivotal text because it perfectly frames the subservience of the woman question to the national question, a conflict that continues to define post colonial feminist critique. The ongoing publication of critical readers confirms that the problematic paradigm of the home and the world continues to answer a particular provenance in the post colonial condition. These are my references. Thank you. If anyone have question, please ask.
So my question is, what lasting critique did Tagore make of the Swadeshi movement through this novel that remains relevant to modern nationalism?
So I already mentioned that Tagore used a character of Sandeep to criticize extreme nationalism. He already predicted that extreme nationalism becomes poisonous for everyone, and it is also poisons individuals' morality and all that.
So, Srushti, my question for you is beyond politics, how do modern critics interpret the central love triangle of Bimla, Nikhil, and Sandeep?
So modern interpretations often views this triangle as a clash between philosophies, not only in just three characters. So we already have discussed about Nikhil represent morality and ethical ethics and all, and Sandeep represent extreme nationalism, and Bimla become a voice for every woman of Bengal who tries to get their freedom. And also she became a symbol of nationalist allegory. That's all. Thank you.
this us versus them model is very different from Tagore's inclusive vision. Then Eurocentric theories of cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism has a longer history. The Stoic, like Diogenes said, I am a citizen of the world, imagining identity beyond city or nation. Kant, in his essay, Perpetual Peace, argued for cosmopolitan law and federation of nations to ensure peace. In modern philosophy, John Rawls stressed duties to humanities alongside national loyalties. The idea is noble to see humanity as one, but the limitation is these theories often come from European context and overlook the realities of colonized societies like India. Tagore offers a more grounded alternative. Tagore's vision of root cosmopolitanism. Tagore's India is what modern thinkers call root cosmopolitanism. He believed in being deeply rooted in one's own culture but also open to the wider world. In the novel, Nikhil is the Tagore's voice. He believes in ethics, freedoms, and harmony. Sandeep, by contrast, is the face of militant nationalism, passionate but manipulative. Bimla is the tone between them, uh, representing Bengal itself, caught between tradition and modernity, nationalism and cosmopolitanism. Tagore rejects narrow nationalism but also awards abstract universalism. He wants balance, home and world. Then theoretical framework. Later thinkers provide frameworks that echo Tagore. Kai Nelson speak of cosmopolitan nationalism, the idea that national belonging and global solidarity can coexist. Anthony Epiha, in the Ethics of Identity, calls it root cosmopolitanism. One can love their culture but still remain open to others. Tagore anticipated in nearly a century earlier. His cosmopolitanism was not rootless but grounded in India's spiritual and cultural traditions. Gender and political identity. A key strength of the home and the world is its gender dimension. Bimla as the wife start within the home, but it drawn into politics through Sandeep. Her journey shows how women were caught between domesticity and nationalism. Women in Swadeshi were often seen as symbols Mother India rather than individual with agency. Tagore questioned this objectification through Bimla's inner conflict. He shows the limits of patriarchy and asks, can women's political participation be more than symbolic? Then political reading of the novel. Politically, the novel is an allegory of India's crossroads. Sandeep represents ultranationalism, very seductive and dangerous. He manipulates Bimla and exploits Swadeshi for personal gain. Nikhil stands for ethical politics based on non-violence, humanism, and respect for freedom. Thus, the novel critiques violent nationalism and suggests that India's future depends on exclusive ethical politics. This is Tagore's cosmopolitan humanism. In conclusion, The Home and the World is more than a political novel. It bridges the divide between nationalism and cosmopolitanism. Tagore anticipates modern frameworks like Epiha's root cosmopolitanism by including gender. The novel complicates and enrich political debates. Ultimately, Tagore was a truly global thinker at a time of rising aggressive nationalism in our world today. His vision of balance, root identity with openness to humanity feels more relevant than ever. So these are my references, and if you have any questions, please ask.
Tanvi, my question is, Tagore shows Bimla caught between home and world, tradition and modernity. Do you think young people in India today still face this same conflict in different forms?
So yes, youth still struggle between tradition and modern life, but Tagore shows balance and not rejection.
So, Tanvi, my question for you is in today's world where aggressive nationalism is rising in many countries, how do you think Tagore's idea of rooted cosmopolitanism can guide us?
Uh, Tagore's root cosmopolitanism means respect own culture uh, and n- n- and also respect all humanities. And Tagore said that uh, uh, we love our own culture and respect all humanities. So thank you so much.
So, hello everyone. I'm dealing with nationalism, gender, and the ethics of choice in the home and the world. Academic information, table of contents. My research question is how does Rabindranath Tagore's The Home and the World critique militant nationalism while simultaneously redefining women's agency and the ethics of individual choice in early 20th century Bengal? Tagore's The Home, my hypothesis is Tagore's The Home and the World demonstrates that nationalism without ethical grounding risk degenerating into exploitation and violence, while true freedom, especially for a woman like a Bimla, lies not in a blind political participation, but in the exercise of individual conscience and moral responsibility. So, context of the novel. So, Tagore chose the background of Swadesi movement in 1905 Bengal partition. A novel reflects the political turbulence of Bengal when the British divided it, sparking the Swadesi movement. Tagore sets its story in this background to show how politics entered domestic spaces. So Tagore critiques a militant nationalism and a blind fanaticism. So through Sandeep's character, Tagore warns against violent, exploitative nationalism. He contrasts this with Nikhil's character. So both character, Sandeep and Nikhil, are contrast with each other. Nikhil's character is moral. He follows ethical values and good human qualities. interviews the personal, political, and ethical dilemmas. The novel blends the story of marriage with the nation's larger struggle. Tagore allegorically uses these three characters, Nikhil, Bimla, and Sandeep. Nikhil and Bimla's marriage is equal to a home, so represents love, duty, trust, and tradition. Sandeep's entry into their lives is equal to a world, so represents a political passion, excitement, and the danger of blind nationalism. Also Tagore uses a multiple narrators. Nationalism in the novel. So Nikhil's points is rational, ethical, and advocates universal humanism, while Sandeep is a charismatic, fiery nationalist but opportunistic and manipulative. Bimla is she feels torn between domestic life and a nationalist passion. So Bimla feels like what she follows, traditional values or modern ideas or idealism, political. Tagore critiques extremism, warns that nationalism without ethics leads to exploitation and violence. So one should follow human values and moral or ethics in just not neglecting ethics or blindly follows political passion. Advocates that true patriotism must be rooted in conscience, not blind fanaticism. Suggests that politics should not destroy human relationship and values. So, gender roles and women agencies. Bimla is the new woman. Her journey reflects the wider debate in Bengal about women's role during the nationalist movement, as Tanvi mentioned in her presentation. Conflict between a tradition and modernity. So, as I earlier mentioned, that Bimla is feels torn between her role. Sandeep's exploitation of Bimla. So, throughout the novel, we find that Sandeep manipulative Bimla for sake of his personal political growth or personal idealism, uses patriotic rhetoric to manipulate her emotions. It raises the question, was women's entry into politics genuinely liberating or just another form of a control? Nikhil's vision of freedom supports her freedom. So Nikhil is a completely opposite of Sandeep. Sandeep is manipulating Bimla, but Nikhil supports her for her freedom and choose her own path. Critical dimensions. So Bimla's struggle reflects India's itself. So Tagore allegorically used Bimla, India itself, a quote between tradition and change, ethics and passion. The novel reinforces traditional values in certain ways. The home treated as a moral center. Women stepping outside often suffer. Crossing certain societal boundaries is portrayed as a dangerous. So, a relevance to a post-colonial critics from a post-colonial angle, Bimla's dilemmas mirror those of colonized societies, balancing tradition and modernity, between being authentic and being modern, between a moral integrity and political expediency. Ethics of choice. So in the home and the world, the ethics of choice is explored through the tension between individual conscience and the collective ideology. Bimla's journey reflects the difficulty of exercising autonomy within a patriarchal and a nationalist framework. A tone between Nikhil's ethical, rational universalism and Sandeep's passionate manipulative nationalism. She struggles to make choices that align with her own moral judgment. Nikhil insists on respecting her freedom. I will never compel you. True freedom is inner freedom. So highlights Tagore's view that ethical actions must come from personal convictions, not a coercion, even when it conflicts with social or political expectations. So novel also questions whether patriotism retains moral values when it demands betrayal of ethical principles. Sandeep's aggressive nationalism manipulates Bimla and other into a compromising their integrity, showing how ideology can override conscience. So Tagore suggests that true liberation is not merely political or social but ethical. The ability to act from one's own moral understanding rather than from external pressure. This theme remains relevant today, reminding readers that loyalty to a cause or a nation must be balanced with personal integrity and critical reflection. So, in critical perspective, uh, feminist critics pointed that Bimla's freedom is limited, shaped by male influence and societal expectations, making her agency often symbolic rather than fully real. So, in the novel, we find that throughout the novel, Bimla is shaped by male influence and societal expectations. Her character is, and post-colonial and ethical critics highlight Tagore's warning against militant nationalism, showing that true liberation requires moral responsibility and conscience, not a blind political loyalty. So, in conclusion, The Home and the World shows how nationalism, gender and ethics intersect, revealing the dangers of blind political power and the concentrates on women's agency. Through Bimla's struggle and Nikhil's moral vision, Tagore emphasized that true freedom, personal, political, and ethical requires conscience, critical thinking, and balance between duty to the nation and responsibility to oneself and others. Here is my references. Thank you. Now you are free to ask questions.
So, Devangini, my question is, what is Tagore's central critique of nationalism in the novel?
Yes, Tanvi, Tagore's central critique of nationalism in the novel is Tagore warns that if we neglected human values and ethics, it harms a people and it also create a problem between a people's relationship. That's
Devangini, my question is how this novel, The Home and the World, is relevant to today's world.
Yes, The Home and the World is relevant in today's world, like Swadeshi movement, as NISHTHA mentioned in her presentation, vocal for local, we find in The Home and the World. And another is if one should blindly follow their passion or a political values, so they are neglected moral or ethical values, so it's harmful to the people or others as well. Thank you.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. This is Rajdeep Bawlia, and today I'm going to present on the topic myths, memory, and nation. Tagore and Yeats on nationalism and identity. So these are my academic details and presentation details. Table of contents. Now, introduction. Two poets, two nations, shared concerns. So Rabindranath Tagore and W.B. Yeats faced colonial modernity and sought to reimagine national identity through culture. So both poets responded to British imperial rule by turning to literature, myth, and cultural memory as tools for national renewal. Their friendship from 1912 onwards forged cross-cultural dialogues that shaped European and colonial perceptions of nationhood. So Yeats helped introduce Tagore to Western readers, and in turn drew inspiration from Tagore's rooted poetic voice. Then a common project retrieve folklore, memory, and myth to imagine a national past that inspires renewal. So both poets mined folk materials and memory to craft a past that would ground a present political and cultural rebirth without simply repeating colonial models. And tension at the core that cultural regeneration versus political instrumentalism. So here are my research question that how do Tagore and Yeats use myth and collective memory to shape nations of nationhood, and what different political and ethical effects follow from Tagore's cosmopolitanism versus Yeats' mythic particularism, with the hypothesis that Tagore and Yeats both mobilize myth and cultural memory to construct a national identity, but Tagore's inclusive cosmopolitan use of tradition yields pluralistic civic imaginaries, while Yeats' selective mythic reclamation produce a more particularized cultural nationalism. And here are my literature review slides. So first point that historical meeting and mutual admiration. So Yeats carried Tagore's translations of Gitanjali with him, saying a whole people, a whole civilization seems to have been taken up into this imagination. So Yeats' public championing of Gitanjali made Tagore a figure in Europe and symbolized the deep aesthetic affinity Yeats felt for culture he idealized, and early enthusiasm later tempered. So Yeats praised Tagore's spiritual unity, but critiqued later English collections as sentimental. So the friendship had high praise, but also later artistic disagreements. Their exchange was enabled by imperial circuits that both constrained and connected writers across empire. So both poets were colonial subjects whose mobility and reputation were shaped by the same imperial infrastructures that they also recited culturally. Then the meeting produced mutual amplifications. Tagore admired Yeats' imagination. Yeats used Tagore to argue for a living folk culture. So each poet saw in the other's model. Yeats found an idea of continuity in Tagore's culture, and Tagore admired Yeats' capacity to reveal a national soul through art. Then the colonial context and cultural nationalism. So both believed that political regeneration of their nations could be achieved through cultural regeneration. So for both poets, culture was not deconstructive but foundational, reviving language and myth and arts. So they rejected crude propaganda. Poetry should not be a mere political instrument, but a moral and imaginative force. So both resisted making literature a party line. Instead, they sought to build a moral culture that would nourish very genuine national selfhood. Then cultural renaissance movements, Abe theatre and Bengal renaissance became a Lucy for national imagination. Then critics accused them of elitism. The poet as a cultural leader versus the mass politics of revolution. So their emphasis on culture and elite aesthetic labor sometimes drew suspicion from activists who wanted direct political action. Then Tagore, nation, self, and universalism. So where the mind is without fear. So Tagore's plea for a redeemed, fearless human consciousness. So Tagore imagines a nation where freedom and dignity are internalized. And Tagore saw cultural unity as synthetic and inclusive, aiming for a greater India that accommodates diversity. So he envisioned a nationhood not as a exclusionary but as an ethical and cultural synthesis. And he warned against the organized selfishness of nationalism, arguing that aggressive patriotism destroys human values. So Tagore's humanism critiques nation worship and insists that ethical universality is a very essential to genuine cultural regeneration. Then language and vernacular modernity. Tagore made Bengali a modern literary vehicle while reimagining skeptical of imperial English as cultural hegemony. Then Yeats, myth, memory, and the poetic nation. So Yeats symbols, for example, spiritual mundi acts as a collective images that store national memory and prophecy. So Yeats used these symbolic figures to embody cultural memory and physic forces shaping Ireland's future. He sought a unity of life rooted in folk culture, imagining peasantry and legend as the nation's living core. So Yeats believed the peasants' lore and the nation's old story could produce and authentic national literature. Then occultism and private myth. So Yeats turned to esotericism to build a personal mythology that could support public history. And Yeats' myth making was also selective and romanticized, prone to idealization of an imagined past. So critics say his return to myth sometimes constructed an Ireland of imagination more than lived social reality. Then myths, memory, and the folk tradition. So both turned to the folk. Yeats collected Gaelic legends, and Tagore revived Vaishnav and Bowl songs as national resources. And Yeats, the peasants' beliefs as a spiritual archive, and Tagore, the village as the microcosm of India's moral life. So both the poets idealized rural life as a repository of values, though each did not did so with different emphasis and degree of romanticism. Then myth reworked, not merely repeated. They adapted legends to modern moral and political questions, and in which risk the myth can become a very pseudo nostalgia or exclusionary if used to fossilize identity rather than renew it. So when a myth becomes rigid, it may exclude a difference. Both poets negotiated this risk in different ways. Then language, script, and cultural reclamation. So it is only through the Bengal language that the people can be moved, and language as a medium of national feeling. So Tagore's investment in Bengali made language the central tool for shaping national consciousness, and Yeats prompted Gaelic revival while writing in English, a bilingual tension at the heart of the Irish identity. Then Sanskritization and Gaelic revival both functioned as claims to antiquate and legitimacy in the nation building. So these appeals to classical languages help create historical depth, and moral authority for emergent national narratives. And language reform is cultural politics shaping who belongs to the imagined community. Then divergent paths, cosmopolitan universalism versus cultural particularism. So Tagore's cosmopolitan humanism resisted narrow nation worship and sought a universal ethics. Tagore argued for a nationalism that remains connected to universal human values, a warning against the danger of aggressive patriotism. And its localism sought a distinctive Irishness, anchored in myth, ritual, and selective canon formation. And Lego highlights that Yeats's ideas about India were romantically inaccurate. So Yeats sometimes projected fantasizes onto Tagore's Bengal. Yeats, this idealization reveals how cross-cultural admiration can flat the complexity into comfortable parallels. Then result that Tagore moves toward inclusive synthesis, it's toward hierarchical cultural mythology. Then influence appropriation and critical responses. So Yeats seized upon Tagore's writings in the hopes of shaping its own version of Ireland's national identity. And Yeats praised Tagore's unbroken civilization, but critics note this was often myth-making more than sociological truth. So admiration sometimes varied into misreading. Yeats constructions reveal how poets can instrumentalize others for national aims. And Tagore himself was wary of simplifications. He acknowledged propagandist strains even within Indian folk forms. So Tagore recognized that tradition can carry distortions and that renewal requires critical reworking, not blind revival. And later critics accuse both of fostering pseudo-nostalgia nations. Defenders see them as creative agents of cultural imagination. Conclusion, poetry, memory, and the nation's future. So both poets made the nation through memory and myth. The nation has first to be invented, to be imagined in the cultural realm. So their work shows that nationhood often begins in culture and imagination before material politics can follow. Then Tagore's inclusive humanism and Yeats' mythic reclamation together map two ways of responding to colonial modernity. So these differences reveal a spectrum from universalism to cultural particularism. Each offers insights and warnings for contemporary identity politics. And key takeaways, myths can animate solidarity, but must be interrogated so they do not become instruments of exclusion. And for scholars and citizens like Tagore and Yeats, invites us to use culture as a site of renewal while resisting the seductions of simple nostalgia. So their legacy challenges us to build nations that are imaginative and humane, not merely restorations of an idealized past. Here are learning outcomes that my view of nationalism shifted. I see it as a cultural process of imagining that can be both creative and dangerous. So studying both poets, it's taught me that national identity is constructed through stories and choices. It can help, but also exclude if unexamined. Then I value the role of language and folk memory in shaping identity, and I now appreciate the ethical responsibility of poets. So literature can mobilize a collective feeling. Those who shape cultural memory must balance authenticity with inclusivity. Then cross-cultural exchange can inspire fresh perspective, but risk projection. Admiration must be tempered by critical inquiry. And after this study, I favor cultural regeneration that is pluralistic, dialogic, and grounded in everyday lives. So here are my references. Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, if you have any questions.
Radip, my question is, what roles did women, subaltern and minority voices play in accepting, constating or reworking the myths Yeats and Tagore promoted?
So, women, subalterns, and minorities were often sidelined by the elite cultures. But though they engaged with myths and also reshaped those myths from below. So women appeared as a subject in poets' work and performance and readers who used those texts to assert new claims. And while subaltern and minority groups sometimes rejected the rejected the wrong version of the past, and but also at some time they also adapted myths to their own local meaning and resistance. So in short, we can say that these groups like complicated poetry, these poetry is national stories rather than just simply accepting them.
So my question is, how were Yeats and Tagore's poem performed, and how did performance alter their national effect?
So Yeats most of the works were reached to public mainly through theater and public readings, notably through Abbey Theatre, where myth were acted out for a mass audience. So this staging and recitation created or converted symbolic these private symbols into shared rituals, and which make Irish myths more public and urgent. And Tagore's poems spread through songs, which we known as Rabindra Sangeet, and recitations, dance dramas, and events at Santi Niketan. So these performances these performances tightened language and feeling to nationhood, which build emotional bonds while keeping poetry engaged with everyday life rather than just more pure to politics. Okay, thank you everyone. This is from my side.
Good evening, everybody. Today we are going to discuss about caste and cosmic injustice in the Curse or Karna, a social philosophical reading. So this is my personal information, table of content, and let's begin from introduction. So the Curse or Karna is a great text of typicalism. Curse Curse or Karna. Karna means this character is belong from good epic Mahabharata, which represent focusing on Karna, which he is very described tragic character in the epic and Kailasam text also. So in this text, Karna's life is shaped by two central characters, two central things, forces like first is rigid structure of caste, and second is cosmic. So due to his good capability, so society and his structure never accept, because he born in lower caste.
So a social philosophical reading of the play highlight that how Kailasam intertwine these two dimension social inequality and metaphysical fact to question idea of justice, morality, and human suffering, caste and injustice. So we all know about that Karna was son of Surya. In Indian culture, Surya is we believe that Surya is a god. So he was son of Kunti and Surya, but he was raised in house of Sut. So it's no he known as a Sutputra. So if we see in caste injustice, so during the his training, Dronacharya never do the give a training to the Karna, because he said that he believe in he only give a training to Kshatriya. Then Arjuna also mocks a lineage. Then during the Swamvar of Draupadi also humiliates him that I will never married with Sutputra. So in the social levels, we can see that how caste is a crushed merit of people. Then philosophical dimension, it's the raise the question about justice versus birth. That is dharma valid if based on lineage, not virtue? Then cosmic injustice. So we also know that Mother Kunti, he also abandoned to Karna, and he Kunti also we can say in the Ganga river to the Karna, and he also cursed by Parshuram that. And Parshuram is also say that when he is in the battle, so that time he lost his memory, and he also cursed by earth that when he also in battle, so that time his chariot wheels also get stuck. So we can see here that how fate also react or work like caste, both any individual freedoms and abstract merit. Then philosophical dimension, we can see here that highlight that arbitrariness of cosmic order, then show that even the virtues and capable can suffer due to forces beyond control. Then it's also reflect that the existential reality of human life, the struggle against destiny is often futile. Then intersection of caste and cosmic injustice. So we all know that Karna is a unique tragedy. So we can't explain his suffering by only single cause. In the Sanskrit epics, portray the Kshatriya as the natural breeders of power and privilege. So in the army and military training, it's also access only to Kshatriya, who belong in lower caste, they don't allow. So we can see here that social status is determined by birth and lineage, not your merit. This framework explain why Karna, through divinely born and skilled, is reduced to a Sutputra and denied recognition. So Hopkins articles also describe that Kailasam's The Curse dramatized this epic truth, exposing how caste injustice was both socially enforced and divinely sanctioned. In the social level, we can see here that caste function, caste is become a barrier, and caste structure is also become very big barrier for our growth. Then philosophical level, we can see cosmic force highlight the limits of human agency. Despite his courage, loyalty, generosity, it's not matter, but it's important that when you are born. So sometimes, many time it's also we can say in today's world, casteism it's a very big barrier for our growth. Then Karna is a tragic hero. We all know that in the epic Mahabharata, all characters face the tragedy, but Karna tragedy is unique, and Kailasam is described in different way. Karna embodies, if we see in Aristotle's sense, so he's a tragic hero, noble, virtuous, at doom. But if we see in other side of Aristotle's tragedy, so his downfall arises not from personal flaw, but structural injustice like a caste and cosmic fate. Then if we see in social dimension, so despite generosity, courage, and good loyalty, Karna is excluded from recognition because he is a Sutputra. Then a philosophical dimension, divine curses and fate punish his virtue. Like Parshuram give a curse, and his chariot wheels also uh, we can say incident illustrate cosmic injustice. Then socio-philosophical implications that describe two type of injustice: first caste and second cosmic. So caste is described that Karna's life exemplify how talent, nobility, and merit are ignored due to birth-based discrimination. Then cosmic, it's also described that reflect that the existential absurdity of life, that so many good people always face the tragedy and difficulties. Then dimension of Karna's tragedy, that social dimension is that his exclusion from society mirrors the denial of opportunity faced by historical disadvantaged group. So many time Dalits and other marginalized communities, it also face that kind of problems. Then if we see philosophical dimension, so it's a raise a question about that really truly justice is in the world or not, and suggest that even noble actions may fail to yield fair outcomes in a universe governed by both human prejudice and metaphysical laws. And the Karna is a metaphor. So Karna is a more than a tragic epic hero. He represents the universal human condition, because his life and struggle reflect the tension between human desire for justice and the inevitability of fate. Then the dual forces, social and cosmic, that shape human suffering and resilience. In essence, Karna's story become a philosophical mirror, urging reflection on ethics, justice, and human dignity in an unjust world. Then contemporary relevance of Karna. So we all know that the social exclusion, Karna face mirrors the struggle of Dalits and other communities today. And we can see that in this sense, Karna anticipates the Ambedkarite movement, highlighting the persistent need for social justice and equal recognition. Then philosophical relevance, Karna's predicament, being virtuous and capable yet doomed by force beyond his control, reflect modern existential concern. He embodies the experience of a noble individual trapped in seemingly meaningless suffering. Then echoing the ideas of existentialist thinker like Camus and Sartre, who explore humanity's confrontation with absurdity. And we also know that Ambedkar, Pulan Devi, and Dr. Radhakrishnan is also great example of this type tragedy and condition. Then conclusion. Typicalism, the curse or Karna, portrayed Karna as a tragic figure which between social and cosmic forces. So, through Karna, Kailasim critique social hierarchy and highlight the timeless human conflict between individual worth and structural oppression. His tragedy resonate across time, connecting ancient epic narrative to modern struggles against social inequality, making Karna both a historical and contemporary metaphor for the human condition. So, this is my reference. Have any question?
So, Krishna, my question is why is Karna's tragedy considered universal rather than just a personal?
Karna is the Kailasam take Karna from Mahabharata because Karna is not just personal. This is not tragedy for his personal life, but it's also a very big condition for all societies who and many times we can see that who believe in that type of caste and structure of society who believe in important of only birth, not merit. So that time people also forcefully and we can say lost his opportunity. So that time people can't take his justice. So we can say this kind of difficulties are faced by so many people in the world. So Karna is for that. Next.
So my question for you is, in what ways does Karna's life anticipate the Ambedkarite movement and modern social justice struggles?
Yes, we all know about that Ambedkar life and his struggle for the casteism and his growth. So we all Karna's life anticipate with Ambedkaric movement because so many difficulties people face when this kind of condition is created. So during the social we can say social discriminations and complexity when created, so that time people also lost his opportunity. And it's not matter that how where how you are we can say capable or loyal or virtue for your work, but they always we can say they always judge by your birth, not your merit. That's from my side. Thank you so much.
So, hello everyone, myself Mita Chambucha, and today my presentation topic is the Indian epic on a modern stage, Tipi Kailasam's experiment in drama. So, this is my personal information. Hypothesis: Tipi Kailasam's reinterpretation of Indian epic challenges traditional notions of divinity, caste, and heroism by humanizing mythological figures and embedding social critique. The theory by making epic narratives relevant for a contemporary audience. Research questions. What role did Kailasam play in shaping modern Indian drama, and how has his work influenced later reinterpretation of epic in theatre and beyond? Table of contents. First, we start with T.P. Kailasam. Who is T.P. Kailasam? T.P. Kailasam was a pioneer of modern Indian drama, writing both in Kannada in English during the early 20th century. He loved drawing inspiration from Indian epic like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, but did not just retell the story. He reimagined them for the modern stage. Some of his well-known plays, including The Burden, Fulfillment, The Purpose, The Curse, and Kichakka. What makes Kailasam's work really specially is how the look reverse epic characters, who were usually seen as flawless heroes or gods, and made them more human, sometimes even turning them into antagonists. Through this approach, he used ancient stories to reflect on contemporary social and political life, inviting the audience to think critically about morality and justice in their own world. Fulfillment, a case study in epic reinterpretation. One of Kailasam's most striking experiment is his play Fulfillment, which is based on the story of Eklavya from Mahabharata. Traditionally, Krishna is seen as a divine hero, but in this play, Kailasam present him more like a cunning antagonist. While Eklavya emerges as the virtuous sympathetic hero, the play explores help deep themes such as the tension between divinity and morality, showing that even gods can act unjustly. But putting these epic figures in morality complex situation, Kailasam challenges the audience acceptation and encourages them to question the ideas of justice, power, ethic, not just in the story, but in society today. In short, he transformed an old epic into a lively conversation about human values and modern life. The Curse, modern perspective. Kailasam's plays The Curse based on Karna from Mahabharata focuses on how he struggles with caste and loyalty. He shows Karna as a human being with feelings, doubts, and flaws rather than a perfect hero. The play also highlights the tension between fate and personal choice, showing that even epic heroes faces thought moral dilemmas. Overall, it reflects the social and ethical issues that are still relevant today. Kichakka, critic of human flaws. In Kichakka, Kailasam explore ambition, pride, and ethical failure. The story shows what happens when selfishness or the misuse of power takes over. By blending traditional epic stories with modern psychological insight, Kailasam helps audience reflect on human nature. The play also teaches moral lessons, making it both entertaining and meaningful. Dramatic technique. Kailasam's dramatic style makes complex epics essay to follow on stage. He simplifies the story but keeps the important message. His dialogue are modern and relatable but still connected to Indian tradition. He uses realism, irony, and symbolism to make the story engaging and often add humor, which makes audience think while enjoying the play. Themes across Kailasam's play. The main themes in Kailasam's play include fate versus free will, justice, morality, and human virtue. He also deals with social hierarchy and caste, as well as ethical dilemmas in loyalty and power. By exploring these themes, Kailasam makes the epic stories accessible and thought-provoking for modern audiences. Humanizing epic figures. One of Kailasam's key contribution is humanizing epic heroes and gods He shows them with strength and weakness, which challenges audiences. The question blind reverse for tradition. By presenting this character in a human way, Kailasam encourages empathy and critical thinking, making ancient stories feel relevant today. Social and political commentary. Uh, Kailasam uses epic stories to comment on contemporary social and political issues. He critiques inequality, favoritism, and injustice, showing how these problems have existed throughout history. His plays remind audiences of their moral responsibility and act as a mirror for society, making people think about ethics and fairness, legacy and influences. Kailasam's work paved the way for modern Indian drama and experimentation on stage. He inspired other playwrights to reinterpret epics for modern audiences, combining traditional culture with modern performances techniques. His work shows that classical texts are not just old stories, but can be living, dynamic narratives that continue to teach and entertain. Key Mahabharata episodes and their relevance to Kailasam's drama. This slide highlights the key episode from Mahabharata that Kailasam used in this place: Draupadi's Swayamvara, the dice game, exile of Pandavas, Arjuna's adventures, and Karna's dilemmas all provide rich material for drama. These stories explore themes like human flaws, ethical dilemmas, loyalty, and social issues such as caste and power. Kailasam adapted this narrative to the stage, humanizing the heroes and making the stories relevant to modern audiences. His plays like The Curse and Fulfillment show this ancient epic can still teach moral lessons while entertaining people today. In conclusion, T.P. Kailasam redefined Indian theatre by adapting epic for the stage. He humanizing heroes, questioned divinity, and emphasized ethic, making his plays so socially relevant and intellectual stimulating. His work demonstrated that India epic and timeless. They can teach lesson and entertaining even in today's world. This is are my references, and thank you. If you have any questions, so ask me.
So my question for you is that how does Kailasam's focus on subalterns connect with modern audiences?
Kailasam focuses on marginalized character, so we can understand their strength, and it help to people for think about the fairness, justice, and morality in the modern time.
So, Mita, my question is that why did Kailasam choose characters like Eklavya, Karna, and Kichak instead of more celebrated heroes like Arjun or Krishna?
Kailasam choose characters like Eklavya, Karna, and Kichaka instead of more celebrated heroes like Arjuna and Krishna because this character was more or less celebrated and have human flaws, and also we know this character faces many problems like uh, caste divinity and interfere in unfair treatment. So that's why Kailasam choose this character. So thank you. This is for my side.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Today's my topic is exploring crime, culture, and karma justice in Narayan's short stories. These are my personal information, table of contents, research question. How does R.K. Narayan employ the concept of a karma to deliver justice in his short stories, and what does he reveal about Indian culture, attitudes toward crime and morality? Hypothesis: R.K. Narayan short stories suggest that justice in Indian society is deeply rooted in the culture belief in karma. Instead of relying on institutional punishment, his a character often undergo moral reckoning through personal transformation, poetic justice, or ironic twist, reflecting a world view in which fate and virtue out of the authority of law. Introduction: R.K. Narayan short stories reflect a simple yet profound literary style rooted in Indian culture. He explored justice through the lens of karma, where characters face moral consequence, not through law but through fate, irony, and personal transformation, highlighting a worldview where virtue and destiny outweigh legal judgment. First is the karma and justice in Indian philosophy. R.K. Narayan's stories reflect Indian philosophy's concept of a karma, where actions have a consequence governed by fate. Justice is a served through the personal realization or ironic twist rather than a legal punishment. This highlights the culture belief that crime meets its rocking throughout karma, not courts. Next is second, crime and moral dilemmas. R.K. Narayan's tales expose the human condition where moral dilemmas uh, areas arise from inner turmoil and the social concentrates. His character's action little poetic justice, underscoring that complexity of human nature. Third is a culture commentary, crime and culture and commentary. R.K. Narayan's stories offer a subtle yet sharp culture commentary on Indian society, often using the satire to expose the contradiction between the tradition and modernity. Is a character negative moral decisions shaped by age-old customs, family expectations, and emerging modern values through gentle irony. Narayan's critics bureaucracy, superstition, and the social hypocrisy, revealing how culture tensions influence ethical choices. His work reflects a social in transition where individuals struggle to reconcile inherited beliefs with the changing realities. Third is the narrative technique and characterization. Narrative technique characterization, use of irony, humor, ordinary characters in extraordinary moral dilemmas in a short paragraph with authentic crime and consequence in Narayan short stories. Types of crimes of a depicted: pretty, theft, deception, moral transgression, philosophical and social motivation behind crime, Next is a conclusion. In conclusion, R.K. Narayan's short stories, despite how crime, often pity of a moral in nature, arises from everyday pressure like a poverty, temptation of a social expectation, he showed that a consequences are not always legal but often karmic, with character facing inner guilt, ironic twist, or moral realization. Through this, Narayan explores the psychological and cultural root of wrongdoing in Indian society. These are my reference. Thank you. Any question?
So, Satakshi, my question is compare the treatment of crime and punishment in Narayan's story with classical literature.
In Narayan story, crime and punishment are simple everyday life, exploring deep philosophical ideas. Next.
So my question is that how does Narayan use humor in serious topics?
Narayan, he added gently humor and ironic make readers think without justice and character harshly. So thank you.
Hello everyone. So today I'm going to present crime and punishment in educational context, power, complicity, and the failure of parental involvement. So these are my personal information, table of contents, and my research question is that how does R.K. Narayan's portrayal of parental involvement, teacher survival, and child agency in his short story reflect a broader failure of educational structures, particularly in terms of power, complicity, and the systematic marginalization of professional ethics? And hypothesis is that while parental involvement is often theorized as essential to student success, and Narayan's story demonstrates that this distorted form of involvement, permissiveness, and indoctrination and superficial monitoring produce dysfunctional learning environments. In such contexts, teachers are compelled into complicity due to economic precarity, and while children develop agency through manipulation rather than authentic learning. And thus, Narayan exposes how structural failures in educational context transform power relationship into cycle of exploitation rather than empowerment. So first we have an introduction that parents' role is more important in child's education. That here we can see that parental involvement through vital for student success is none by R.K. Narayan to fail as a home indulgence, and one-way communication and superficial participation collapse into dysfunction. That here Narayan suggests that education is not individual issues, but it's shaped by power, economy, and authority. So that is the main point also in that. And here we can see that child, though apparently powerless, but he manipulate both, like a teacher and parents. So that is the very main point about that. Children don't have any power, but while they manipulate both teachers and parents, then we have another point, that the teacher's dilemma and professional versus survival. That in this we can find that how teacher struggling between professional rules and the need to survive. So that is the main point. Here we can see that in this we can find the professional goal, that obtain 50 in the class test and go up by double promotion to the first form, as his parents fondly hoped. And what is the reality, that forced to be station master. That here we can see that in the Narayan story we can find that forcefully teachers have to become a station master for the child. So that is the very manipulation we can find in this. And also teacher have to tell a story of animals. So that is the wrong practices which give by a teacher. So that is the main point. And physical exhaustion, that the teacher's face was flushed and he gasped uncomfortably, and he felt a darkness swelling up around him. So that is also main point. That, and according to UNESCO on a teacher prejudice, that teacher can be instrumental in fighting but also in perpetuating discrimination in education, and affecting the self-esteem and academic achievement of minority and vulnerable groups. So here we can see that critical addition, that teacher can also be victim of systematic dysfunction and trapped between survival and ethics. So that is we can find the teacher's dilemma in the education system. So that is also main point. And then we can see the economic trap, that why teachers comply. That here we can see that Narayan's economic reality, that here we can find that teacher have to do what child said because of economic need. They have to survive, so that they agree with these ideas. And teacher had already worked 6 hours of teaching at school that day, then face 3 hours every evening with this family. And the teacher have to agree with the idea, because they never agree with the idea, then they don't get money for that. So that is the big point here we can find. Then contemporary research context from juvenile also, that teachers in middle schools that often have over 100 students, affecting the teacher's ability to reach out to the parents. And here the organizational structure creates barriers where parents might not know which teacher to approach if they wanted to be in contact with the school. And here also we can find that weakness of parents, that they cannot they don't have any much relation to the teacher, that what's mark that teacher have to then parents is very important. Then in this, that parents have to ask teacher that my child is okay, means in education system. Then we have the 3 levels of parental involvement. Then here Narayan's strongly perfected in this juvenile framework. That here we can see that the home-based activities. So parents have filled up his cupboard with all kinds of sweets and biscuits, and left it to his good sense to devour them moderately. That parents always in favor of child, that they want this, they can provide. But here we can see that education is a very crucial, very important role in this. We can find that they have to scold about that, they do not they have to learn from this. Then school communication, that parents lecture teacher daily on theories, result one way indoctrination, not partnership. And here we can find that according to Juvenans, that only about one half the parents reported that they had never contacted the school about their child's performance, but less than one third of the students were under the impression that their parents had talked to a teacher or a counselor. So that is the main issue about the today's time also. And here we can see that Narayan's twist, that parents never genuinely communicate with teacher about actual learning. That is the also main point, that parents never ask for her children. Then gender and parenting role. So in this we can find that Narayan's gender dynamics. So mother study child psychology for B. It means that here both parents are educated, but they cannot understand education very importantly. That here we can find that father's authority remains primary despite equal theoretical knowledge. And here we can see truly on gender in Indian parenting, that mothers were reported to be the primary figures in the lives of the children, with interaction with other were rooted through the mother, creating a triangulation of relationship. And on the other side we can see that Narayan here uh, says that mother's voice absent in story, only parents as a unit, and suggests traditional gender hierarchy despite Western educational theories. And we have child agency and manipulation. As I mentioned earlier, that a child have no power, but therefore they manipulate on teachers and parents also. So how the boy controls both her adults, that threatens explicit, that I will tell them. So that is the forcefully they they want station master, and also tell a story on animal. So that is the forcefully doing by a teacher. Then physical evasion, that wheeled about madly and made the teacher run round the garden thrice. That is the wrong, exactly wrong. But here because of economic needs, teacher have to do this. Then strategic retreat, that unabashedly slunk behind his parents, and by look and gesture appealed to the teacher not to betray him. And here we can also find that children is very good in action, that they emotionally blackmail parents and teachers also. So the final bargain is that teacher lies to protect boy, and boy becomes a grateful and won't give him up now. And here, according to UNESCO, we can see that students may internalize stereotype, and which compounds negative effects on their sense of belonging and education achievement. But Narayan shows the reverse, that student can also weaponize adult expectation for their own protection. And the last conclusion, that Narayan portrays education as a dysfunctional system where parents, teachers, and child are all agent and victim. Earlier, I mentioned this is not only role of a child, but it's also about parents and teachers. And parents distorts involvement, the teacher compromises ethics under economic precarity, and the child exploits contradiction to survive rather than learn. And we can see the anticipating modern critics, that Narayan suggests reform must go beyond parental effort or teacher dedication to address structural inequalities and gender hierarchies and the ethical aim of education itself. These are the reference. Thank you. Now, if you have any questions.
So, Shruti, my question for you: how does the child challenge the view of students as a passive victims?
Yes, as I earlier mentioned that this child is manipulate both teacher as well as parents through the emotional tricks and also threat and escape, and he uses a contradiction in the system to protect him. So that is the main answer of that.
So, Shruti, my question is why is the teacher both powerless and complete?
So we can see also that earlier that teacher is powerless because of economic needs, and he completes it because he agrees with wrong practices. And here we can see that Narayan shows that how survival pushes a teacher to compromise their ethics. So that is the main point here we can say. So thank you so much. This is from my side.
Oh. So hello everyone, myself Rosemin. My topic about the uh, subaltern in cinema, because you know that the cinema is not for entertainment, because not for the entertainment, but they also represent the reality of the society. My research question: in what way do Indian and the global films depict subaltern struggles across the caste, class, race, and the gender? Hypothesis: despite a cultural difference, both Indian and global films highlight the universal patriarch of the subaltern marginalizations, showing a cinema as the translational medium of the resist and the documentation. That is my table of content. So let's start with the introductions. The word subaltern reflect to marginalized group who are excellence for dominant power structures. Gayatri Spivak, in her work, Can the Subaltern Speak? Question if the oppressed can truly represent the theme slaves of, or are always spoken for in a cinema as the mass media medium offer because a way to represent this silenced group. Theoretical framework. So, Spivak described between the representations and the speaking for and representations as the showing. Scholars like Mishra in they explore subaltern narratives in literatures, and the second scholars like Meggio on translations and subaltern audibilities. They both scholars show the theories help. These both scholars' theses help us to understand how a film negotiates the silence and the voice. Subaltern in Indian cinema. So in Bollywood, offer ignore the caste, class, and tribal realities, but the prayer and the religion cinema in like Tamil, Marathi, and Hindi has actively highlighted the struggle. This film focus on Dalit, tribal, class, gender marginalizations, etc. So, as a political and a social relevance in the cinemas, like as the as a praise, as the Madhav praise argue, a cinema itself is a political space where fun actually subaltern, so varieties come together. Like fedlars connected borders of humanities, they visibility shaped by media and humanism. So cinema is not natural. It can resist power but also explode suffering. I will give some of the examples of Indian films like Kala. In Akala, Rajnikant play a Dalit leader in a Dharavi. The color black because become a symbol of resistance against the caste oppressions. The film explored the land rights under urban poetries and the essence of the marginalization. Second, Asura. So Asura, based on the novel, Tamil novel Vekai, they saw the themes like caste violence and social inherency, revenge and the survival, ruler struggle and generations trouble traumas. And the third, Jain Bhim. Jai Bhim is based on the real 1993 case. It tells how a lawyer fight for the rural tribal communities against the constability violence. The film highlights how law, usually a tool of oppressions, can also become a weapon for justice. Article 50, based on the real case, they show the police officers conferring a systematic caste prejudice. They show the themes like Dalit atrocities and the social injustice, systematic oppressed and the brutalities, and the represent to the contentionalist rights. Fedri and the Seirat, directed by Nagaraj Manjule, they show the Fedri. In this Fedri, the story of the Dalit boy humiliated due to the caste and the family corruptions. And Seirat, intercaste love story ending in honor killing. Some of the other examples like some of examples show as in these Seirat movies, one or two movies are based on these themes also. So Jund, biopic of Vijay Bars, Amitabh Bachchan mentor slum youth through football. They show marginalizations and the poverty, caste and social barriers, crime and redemptions and communities, empowerment and resistance. Masan was show the true story. First, Devi faced the Devi faced so many problems in her life because they punished for a premarital relationship. Deepak, lower caste youth working and a climatic guest. They show the themes like a caste barrier and the discriminations, gender policing and the social judgment, grief, loss and hope for a better future. So otherwise the court, the trial of the Dalit folk singer accused for inciting a suicide. The film critiqued the slow and based legal system, showing how the marginalized remained invisible even in the court. It is a sharp reflections on the brutalities and justice. My second point about the global subalterns in cinemas, like some examples. So that first examples like Parasite. Parasite from a Korean explore class inequalities. a poor family securely live in a basement of the rice home. The film show how the poor remain invisible even while serving a elite. Roma. The Roma tell the story of the indigenous mind in 1970s Mexico. It highlights the intersections of the gender, race, and the class, showing how a colonial histories shape everyday life. The film make invisible work and the emotion center of the stories. The White Tigers and the District 9. The White Tigers explore the caste mobilities, corruptions, and the social inequalities in India. District 9 is a science fiction allegory for operatic xenophobia and the refusing marginalization in the South Africa. Themes across the films. If we compare some common themes appraised like caste operations in Asuras and Jai Bhim, and the class explorations in Parasite, Roma, and the White Tiger, law and justice show in court and Article 50, hope and resistance show in the Jhund and Seirat. These show a subaltern struggle are both local and global. Challenging in representations. So, directors are face so many challenges because sometimes film romanticize the suffering or drawn into spectacles. Adapted film that focus on a subaltern lives often have a limited reach, and other elite directors and production speech for a subaltern instead of the subaltern speaking directly. Conclusion. So, in conclusion, cinema give a visibility and a voice to the subaltern. In a connected local and a struggle like a Dalit Asrate will a global connect like a class equalities. So, film like Bhim, Jai Bhim, Masan, and Roma documented social inequalities will Jhund, Kala, and Seirat highlight the resistance and the empowerment. They act as both documentations and the resistance against the oppressions. So that is my reference. These are the main reference I used. They help me connect the theory with cinemas. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
So, Rosemin, my question for you, do films really bring social change?
As my point of view, I think yes, because some of the films like Article 50, Article 50s and Kalas and other some main films like Roma represent to the reality of the subalterns peoples. Thank you.
Rosmin, my question is for you that which director do you think is most committed to subaltern representation?
As my point of view, that some of the directors like Ranjit in his film Kala and Nagraj in his film like Seirat and Jhund, they represent the how and they face the because they face a reality of his life because they come for the come to the marginalized background. they face so many problems in his life because that's why they 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 can tell in his films. Thank you.
Okay. So that was the last one for the first day. Most of you are doing it quite well so far as your citations are concerned or your references are concerned. In the morning also we have made this point that now you have to use the arguments. You have to now level up one stage and you have to use the arguments. Whatever hypothesis you are taking, how the resources which you are reading from articles are helping you, whether in supporting or in counter arguing, like so and so person said so and so things in this. So whether you agree with that or you counter argue that, or you are making a kind of a stance, whether the other person is supporting you in that stance, then you can say that, well, so and so person also has said the similar kind of things in this article, and then you give the quote from the article to support your thing. So that way now you have to start using, because in next semester when you will have to write thesis, this all things will be very important. It won't be important only to make a reference of somebody. Right now you are doing the reference, so you have understood that you have to refer to some other resources for your work, but now it is time to use that resource, not only refer but use for making arguments there. Last presentation, Rosmin, we have also made this comment in while the discussion also, that there are many topics which are confusing. Like it will be in cultural studies also, it will be in post-colonial studies also, it will be in film studies also, criticism. So how will you differentiate? In which paper you are speaking what? Like if this is the presentation of criticism film studies, what is the difference? Today you are making a film studies presentation, or you are talking about pre-independent Indian English literature. This is what is the context of this? Pre-independence literature published in before 1947 in Indian English. In that context, you have to tell this. So this is all completely out of context. If you are talking about films published in that era, then also it is relevant. Now, this is what happens when you keep on remaining absent. Many days when you remain absent, then many instructions are not reaching to you. And then you get all confused that what will I do in cultural studies and what will I do in post-colonial studies? So you have to be very careful that which text you are talking, and then how you go beyond that. You have to take the text in the syllabus as a stepping stone. And then you have to see that it's not that anything you do. So then there won't be any connection with what you present in which paper. And the same thing will happen when you write for the exam also. What to prepare for which paper, you won't be able to know. In that case, then in exam also everything will be confused. So be careful what you are doing, what is your context, which paper today you are preparing, what is the overall reference of that, and then you have to say the things also. Even Mita and Satakshi also, Satakshi is still asking a question that how students are passive victims. Now you have to say that how you victimize teachers by constantly remaining absent in the class. Now change the side. Try to think of teachers now. When students like you constantly remain absent, what will be the situation of teachers? So don't think about the victimization of students. Think of how you victimize teachers now by constantly remaining absent. અંગ્રેજીમાં સમજાઈ ગયું હશે, નહીં તો કોઈને પૂછી લેજો કે સર શું કહેતા હતા, બીજા લોકો સમજ્યા તમને સમજાવશે. So this all Mita also you I think you will have to give semester 1 exam. Semester 1 ની પરીક્ષા બાકી છે ને જી? હા, તો યાદ છે કે મારે યાદ રાખવાનું છે? Inform clerk and me also about that, otherwise it will not be approved. Yeah, have you given? Huh? You will have to, when you do that, have you filled the form? So when you fill the form, then you have to talk. ગમે ત્યારે એક દિવસે કહી દેવાનું કે મેં તો કહી દીધું, હવે તમારી જવાબદારી, એમ નહીં. Till last moment you have to remind that this is my exam, and then only the things will be approved. Otherwise the marks will not be entered from here, and you will again come as absent or fail in this. So remember that, and go to the exam and appear in the exam, because we don't want the burden of backlog of students. We want to clear everything when you pass out. Otherwise it will be burden on us that the students are still pending there. So we don't want that burden of pending students here. Okay, so we end this session here now. Okay?